What's up guys, Americana back with another video. As you know, we very well could be in a fractal just like January of 2022. This is due to similarities in structure as well as the monthly MACD cross. But you guys know I've expressed my doubts, and that's why I'm holding out for a sell signal on the weekly time frame, or for the entire month and a half fractal from January of 2022 to play out. So in this video, we're going to take another look at the fractal, update where we're at with that, as well as take a look at two charts that conflict with a scenario like January of 2022. So let's get into the video. I think this one will probably come out earlier in the week because it is a fair warning for kind of more near-term price action when it comes to where we could be at. So you guys know this fractal, it does look like we have broken away from it, but I'm not entirely moved to move away from it just yet, and I'll explain why. Yes, we didn't get the same type of push up to these fib levels, same size or whatever have you. But these fractals are never going to be perfect. If you guys see me use fractals, I'm never going to say it's going to be a carbon copy. So for me, I need to see something a little bit different on price structure, right? I need to see price, some sort of sustained move to the upside, some sort of clean reclaim of $98,000 that we didn't have in past cycles or something like that. Even though it's coming in from a different level, structurally, it's similar. Where would it point at or put us, right? Somewhere along or somewhere in this little correction area in here. It's coming in from lower, but working out, maybe we're somewhere in here right now. When I say in here, let me point to that so you guys can see a little bit better. Somewhere right in there, okay? Obviously, I can't put the fractal and say it has to come up to here because the fractal did. We have other reasons pointing back to the 702 and stuff. I can't grab this fractal and say, hey, we're going to go hit 72 because the fractal points that. But what I can do is look at these structures. Okay? This thing was following very closely in here, right? We can tell that this low at $84,000 is very similar structurally to this low that we had at whatever price this came in at. If we were going to continue following this fractal, it would point to a sweep of that low. And where's my little drawing tool at, right? So, kind of little stall in there, poke below the low, reclaim and up. Where we see that, right? Boom, boom, little stall in there, poke below the low, reclaim and up. In a situation like this low, right? This low here at $80,000 would have to hold, but looking at the week, getting into a level like that might not be the worst thing. Let some shorts pile in, right? Run it back later in the week. We'll have to see how it plays out. Like I said, I'll try to drop this a little bit earlier in the week just so you guys know. Right? I'm not saying I'm expecting a dump or it has to dump or something like that. I would love to see this thing break away. I think it can anytime with some of these other charts we're going to look at. Two of them we'll show in this video here. Others we've mentioned in other videos, but just wanted to point out that if we are going to continue following this fractal, all right, it would point to sometime this week, next week, something like that, sweeping this $84,000 low. I also want to point out we do have these sell approaching signals on the daily time frame. This is the Binance chart. Sorry, I just have a bunch of charts open, so I have to use the Binance chart right now. So it's not my favorite chart to use, but I also want to point out, right, these sell approaching signals. So this means that momentum is declining at a certain slope with a certain acceleration. All right, but to actually get a signal, if you guys go back to my indicator video last week, we have to be in the right regime. As you see here, this is not a bearish regime. Okay, this is currently a bullish regime, even with this kind of decline we've had over the last few days. So we're still in a bullish regime. We wouldn't get a sell signal right here, but that doesn't mean, this thing puts a little bit of pressure on us and we go kind of play out that fractal or continues to follow that fractal from January of 2022. So I will continue monitoring this fractal. I will continue watching it until the day that we cleanly break through it. What's it going to take to say, hey, Americana, we've cleanly broke through it? Okay. Reclaiming 90 or 98, getting back into these fib levels, holding and getting through. I'm not saying it has to follow exactly this. It can do whatever. It can sweep this, reclaim, chop in here, 98, sweep that low, reclaim, get in the fibs, chop, and break out. It can do all this, right? But I'm just saying until we clear these fibs, I'm really not going to move away from this fractal unless something changes drastically, whether that be time, structure, really just time and structure. But yeah, just wanted to point this out. It is a possibility sweeping that 84K low at some point this week. If we don't and we break out and we range here, right, maybe pointing to, hey, this fractal could be breaking. So make sure we keep an eye on this. I will update you guys as time goes on the situation. But yeah. All right, now for the second part of this video, let's move on to, right, like I said, this entire time has been conflicting, because if you look at the back end of the market, it's like, are we about to like pop off? Like, this thing looks pretty good. And then you look at Bitcoin's price and you're like, oh, blah, looks crappy. Look at that monthly MACD. Look at us following this fractal. Look at these not able to make any higher highs in here. Look at this tight range. Look at us sitting on top of the 21-month moving average, right? So just looking at Bitcoin would make anybody extremely bearish. Looking at things on the back end, it's not bad, right? It's not bad. So first thing we want to point out is the DXY. Just a few weeks ago, just a few weeks back, everybody screaming, oh my goodness, the DXY is breaking out, guys. I saw how many charts I saw like this. DXY breaking out, DXY this. Oh my goodness, new all-time highs in the DXY. Just a bunch of charts with arrows. And we've maintained the same thing, right? And what's weird is a lot of these dynamics that we have talked about for months now continue to play out in similar ways as we expected. It's just, holy shit, crypto is not following. Does that mean it isn't going to follow? Or I don't know, right? We have our parameters on the crypto market, what we're looking for when it comes to a bear market, but like, this looks good to me. Like, daily bearish regime continuing lower, 3-day bearish regime continuing lower, right? Again, following this fractal all the way down, okay? Weekly time frame. Okay, let me get these up here. We can see 0.95, 0.92. I'm looking at these numbers right here, guys. So 0.95, 0.927, and a little uptick this week. We just started the week, so this wouldn't be confirmed until we actually close it. I don't think it's likely we get some sort of upthrust when the daily and 3-day look as so, but we will see. But the point is, right, decreasing momentum, 9.5 or 0.95 to 0.927 over the last 2 weekly closes that we have, coming off of this rejection from the fib retracement, right? We are in a bullish regime on the weekly time frame, but if we get these declining momentums, right, while also on, take that off, also on declining momentum on the monthly time frame, we kind of know we're looking in the right area. And if this thing breaks, if this thing gets out, I will change my tune quickly, right? You guys know, all I do is I just sit around all day. I look at charts. I theorize based on where it's at, what could happen, but I'm only basing it on where it's currently at, right? Do not know where markets are going to go in the future. So if DXY doesn't get to this range low, bounces up from here, right, I'll start sounding the horn. Hey, Bitcoin continues to follow its fractal and DXY gets back up into these fibs and it's ranging, right? I become increasingly worried. But until that time comes, right, there's nothing really broken on these backends, like I showed you guys. So I think that is very interesting to take a look at. I also want to point out too that when we get down here, right, I mentioned this in my video last week, but when we get down here, I'm taking a hard look at the market. Okay, if somehow we find a way for a total 2 to break out and backtest and move up higher from before we get down here or as we get down here, this could be the top of the market getting down here. Okay, as time goes, I'm kind of leaning that, hey, it's not the top. And actually, last cycle, the top came in at the last point of support within Wyckoff accumulation. But I will be taking a look at it. And I also want to point out that, hey, this thing is more than welcome to completely just reject through these levels and move down to something like this. That would be potentially awesome for the cryptocurrency market. But very curious how, ever since this is November 24th, how this entire move has not really had as big of an effect on crypto as we originally thought. I don't think it means it's broken yet. I don't know what it means exactly, but we're going to continue to monitor this DXY chart and see how this plays out. And just out of curiosity, let's go, is that February or November of 2021? Go ahead and add that on here. Right, it's actually the day we did find the bottom in Bitcoin. It was that kind of final rejection in there on a Friday and moved down. So can't say it's been bad for the market, but we just haven't seen some sort of explosive move come out of that DXY move just yet. Typically, the most extreme moves in any market are going to come in, at extreme levels. So maybe we do need to wait for the DXY to get, below that or below there to see some sort of movement. But just want to point out, currently tracking exactly as as we would have expected. Really, the first time I mentioned this was back in July, looking for a move down here. We actually were kind of looking for a move back up here. Did not think it would be so detrimental to the crypto market, just judging by what happened on this move in past cycles, but it is what it is. we'll continue to watch it. I definitely want to see this continue to play out. A weak dollar is going to be good for us. Next up, this is actually my favorite chart right now. Ethereum price in Bitcoin is super clean in my opinion. Super clean. Okay, so we have the 3-day time frame. Let me just take this off for you guys real quick, just so you can see it a little better. I don't really need that EMA in here. This level here, you guys saw in my other videos, seemed to be the level that, hey, when we get above this, right, if I threw Ethereum's chart on here or even Bitcoin's chart, getting and holding above this level has meant fun times for the market. Okay, we got above this level over here when we had this move here, that move right there, into the final phases of the 2018 cycle, right? But getting above this line has meant fun times in the market. We also had this little key level in here, pullback that we wanted to see hold. Seems that it has. And on the 3-day time frame, I really hate trend lines. I really hate trend lines, guys. I hate them so much. I ended up using one on here just because it's kind of clean. But we did, kind of reject from this first attempt getting through this key level. We are in a bullish regime. Okay, so if we get, right, this is a buy approaching signal down here. If we do get this buy approaching to confirm, right, we're potentially getting a buy signal. Okay, could be really good. Even outside of that, just good to see momentum ticking back up on Ethereum price and Bitcoin. Again, another chart that conflicts with us being in a similar situation like January of 22. If we look at where we were at back then, right, this is the month of January 22. Boom, to right about there. Definitely a different kind of place, right? In a different area, right? All the way up here. This is where you're going to find the top of the market when Ethereum price and Bitcoin is potentially topping out. In my opinion, not really when it's moving off of macro level. Not going to be a dummy and just follow these things blindly, but until Bitcoin prints that sell signal, until Bitcoin, rejects from certain levels that we've discussed, and we have charts like this, right? Kind of, gives me more hope to remain bullish. I don't know if you guys are in my free Discord, but I actually have been buying during this time. I've been buying altcoins that look good to me, right? They're kind of a punt. Everybody's like, hey, market's dead, bear market, definitely no alt season. All of these, right? Everybody's saying all these things. I myself, I'm scared. I'm like, am I an idiot for buying these? But typically, buying Solana sub $20 in November of whatever, right after FTX collapsed, yeah, I felt like an idiot also. But that's returned 10, 15x so far this cycle, guys. So those are always going to be your best buys. When you're scared, when you kind of feel like an idiot, almost like everybody's telling me not to do this. Everybody's saying this is a bad idea, but I'm going to do it anyways. And I just feel like we're kind of at one of those times. It's been tough, but I've been buying, added like, I think in total, probably 5 to 7% of my portfolio. So not anything crazy. I'm not buying like it's bear market lows or anything like that, but I'm kind of getting some exposure in the altcoin market into some stuff that has been beat up, that is at bear market lows, that actually doesn't look half decent if you really take a look, right? So just full transparency. But this has been one of the charts that's helped me do that. And we'll talk about it in another video this week. I think there is something interesting that could happen with Ethereum price and Bitcoin breaking out, while potentially also getting a small spike in Bitcoin dominance. That would be an interesting one to me. So make sure you check out my other video on that. All right, also want to point out weekly time frame. We are in a bullish regime currently, right? We do not have momentum agreeing with us just yet. But if we can get this thing to break out on 3-day time frame, and look at this, we even got a nice little swing model pointing to taking out the high. I'll try to update if that confirms. This is on the weekly time frames. This is a monthly to weekly swing. Pretty strong stuff. But if we can get the 3-day to turn on right, I don't see any reason why this weekly doesn't catch up. If this regime continues, right, maybe we're getting a buy signal somewhere in there, somewhere later down the line. We'll monitor that. But potentially the early phases of some sort of reversal coming in, bottoming structure on Ethereum price and Bitcoin. Again, same thing as the DXY. If this thing just nukes from here, yes, we're good. But until that happens, we can only work on the data we have, right? Also, monthly time frame. This thing looks pretty primed in my opinion. Okay, there's the monthly swing model in there. Here, I'll take off this trend line, right? Sweep these lows, close within, right? Targeting these highs right here. But also, right, on the monthly time frame, green regime and momentum climbing like a bat out of hell. Really good sign here. Really good, clean chart, I think. Ethereum price and Bitcoin close over this midline. Market's going to be fun. Make sure we hold this low. Let's see if we can get momentum to kick in. DXY giving us exactly what we wanted. Let's see if this continues. And if that does, I think that could conflict with letting this entire fractal play out. But fair warning that, hey, sometime this week, right, maybe we do get a sweep of this 84K level, right? It's not going to scare me, especially if it happens early. We do have this EMA right here. This is kind of a bear market capitulation EMA for me, 21-month moving average. I really don't want to have to go through the painstaking process of figuring out what's going to happen if we lose this. Because if we lose this right now, to me, it's like different bear market, shorter, maybe not as deep. How do I play that at that time? Becomes a little bit dicey. So let's look to hold. But if we're getting what we want out of DXY, Ethereum price and Bitcoin, right, I would assume that these things are doing well. I didn't mention it in that Ethereum price and Bitcoin, but when Ethereum price and Bitcoin is going up, right, it typically lines up with fun times in the market. So that means Bitcoin's also going up, right? So Ethereum price and Bitcoin isn't going to break, and that mean that Ethereum or Bitcoin is going to roll over from here. I suppose it could happen, but every example we have in the past, when I say getting over that line, it means fun times in the market. That's for Bitcoin too. Let's look to see if we can get that to happen. Also, again, look out for that 84, 85K level on some sort of sweep this week. But we will go ahead and wrap it up here. As always, let me know if you guys have any questions. Second week doing this kind of more free-flowing videos. I don't have a script. I have a topic with some bullet points and just kind of trying to talk about it. I think we can get a little better vibe, a little more entertainment, and a little bit of a better value even, honestly. If you guys are willing to sit and listen to me rant, I feel like you can learn a few things, or it'll help you think about the market. So anyways, we'll wrap it up here. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.